Welcome to Introduction to Connection Circles. We're so glad you're here. During this brief session, you'll learn more about this simple yet powerful program for engaging youth in conversations about communication and conflict resolution topics. If you'd like to upload a copy of this presentation and make notes as we go along, click in the File Share box to the right of your screen. Here's a look at what we're going to be doing this session. In a minute, we're going to do an introduction and then take a look at give you some clarity and context for what connection circles are all about. What is the program and who does it serve? This includes some of the feedback that we have gotten about the value of connection circles from staff, facilitators, and youth. Then we're going to look at some of the research that supports using dialogue circles as an effective way to teach communication and conflict resolution skills. Next, we'll review a summary of findings from our 2-year pilot project. And we'll look at one important finding, which is that there are key implementation elements that are essential to the program's success. In this implementation section, we're going to look at those elements as well as give you an idea of a typical Connection Circle session, give you a taste of one of the Connection Circle scripts, and just generally try and give you a little bit of an idea of what a Connection Circle actually looks like. And finally, we'll talk about some of the resources that will be available and how you can obtain them. So this is me. I'm your facilitator, Chris Medvesic. I am a Community Dialogue Specialist at the Center for Community Dialogue and Training in Tucson, Arizona. I have more than 30 years experience in mediation, facilitation, and conflict resolution education for all ages. I co-developed the Connection Circles pilot program with the center's manager, Catherine Tornbaum, and I'm delighted to be sharing it with you today. Here's a little bit about us. The Center for Community Dialogue and Training provides community mediation, communication, and ADR training, community forums, and dialogue circles reaching more than 1,500 people a year. The center is a program of Our Family Services, a nonprofit that has served vulnerable and disadvantaged youth and families in southern Arizona since 1953. We want to express appreciation to the funders of the Connection Circles pilot program, which is the Association for Conflict Resolution and the JAMS Foundation Initiative for Students and Youth. We're so grateful for their support and commitment to effective conflict resolution education. So what is a connection circle? A circle is more than just a bunch of chairs facing each other. It's an intentional space for youth that is actively experienced as being safe, respectful, welcoming, and accepting. To accomplish this, connection circles utilize a dialogue circles model. In these structured conversations, participants pass a talking piece and only speak when they're holding it. These are voluntary conversations. No one is forced to participate, and if they choose to participate, they're not forced to speak. They may pass. There's no crosstalk or debate in a circle, meaning that all voices are heard and all participants are both speakers and listeners. The program does not seek to actively teach skills. All responses are accepted. We've been told by circle facilitators and site staff that the neutral facilitator is essential to the power of connection circles. Let's take a closer look at that role. Most adults do not have experience as neutral leaders. Rather, we're typically viewed by youth as authority figures and are seen as holding the right answer. It can be hard for adult leaders to give up trying to guide youth in a particular direction or to a certain conclusion. That's why Connection Circles provides free online training in the important and subtle art of neutral facilitation. At the end of this webinar, or the end of this introduction section, you'll have an opportunity to contact the center if you would like more information on accessing this training. Connection circles, under the guidance of a neutral facilitator, do not attempt to teach or correct participants. Facilitators do not seize on teachable moments. Youth may answer or they may choose to pass. However, facilitators do provide a small amount of information in order to spark conversation. The facilitator's role is to follow a script of broad, open-ended questions that encourage youth to reflect on communication and conflict resolution topics. Facilitators also ensure that the circle is a safe and respectful environment. Connection circles are focused on communication and conflict resolution skills for youth. This is an innovative way to help the youth learn and practice these skills, and it's focused towards youth who are ages 14 to 24, with a particular focus on vulnerable and structurally disadvantaged youth. It's possible for youth at any level of ability to participate in this circle. We've done it with high school students, with students who are experiencing homelessness, with young adults who have cognitive delay. It is a very accessible model for all sorts of kids. It's a very accessible model for everybody because we use it for adults as well, concurrent with younger people in the same circle. Connection circles encourage connection to personal experience. So rather than telling, we are eliciting what's already there. Participants are encouraged to connect to the topics to their own lives and opinions, and to hear from others the same information. And participants connect their experiences and feelings and actions to communication terms and concepts about conflict resolution. Connection circles also provide connection to others. At some program sites, staff tell us that the connection circle is the only meaningful conversations that youth have with each other or with staff. Feedback from youth, circle facilitators, and staff at the sites where circles are being held indicate that the simple process of talking and listening together strengthens bonds among participants. And the circles allow participants to practice these skills with each other as part of their natural participation in the dialogue circle. Connection circles are used in a variety of ways. We have two kinds of programs. One is a long-term program, which is an ongoing, consistent program. It meets at the same place at the same time with the same facilitators. And we have started these programs in classrooms and after-school programs, youth shelters, residential facilities, youth groups and clubs, and drop-in youth programs. Short-term programs are held for a limited period of time or even just a single use. These are a response to the need of some sites to provide a dialogue experience to youth without committing to a long-term program. Some examples could be youth discussions of critical issues. For example, we did a forum in March on school shootings following the Parkland, Florida school shooting tragedy, and about 400 students at a local high school participated in those connection circles. We also work with clubs or youth boards or councils or even larger student conferences such as a citywide Youth and Peace Conference that drew 300 students. What is the value of a connection circle to a youth program? Well, there are several benefits. One is personal interaction that may be missing on a daily level. So here's a quote from a staff at one of the sites hosting a circle. Circles give us a chance and an excuse to be able to talk to the kids. If I say, hey, let's sit down and have a talk, the kids would see it as weird or am I in trouble? But if we all sit down in connection circle, it's not that strange and gives us a chance to get to know the kids better. Another benefit is the value of offering consistent programming. Staff have told us, don't downplay the value of consistency. It's good to have a routine when you're coming from terrible places. It's very valuable to staff to maintain a sort of normalcy. In addition, connection circles help youth bond with each other. Site staff have commented, kids bond during the circle. There have been times when we have had emotional circles where some kids were close to tears because some of the circles have resulted in stories of others that they did not know. They talk about it afterwards, even the following week. There were a couple of kids who became good friends after the circle because you've been through what I've been through. And circles offer youth a release. It's been noticed by facilitators running these circles that sometimes the kids just use the talking piece to vent about a certain frustration and then try and shape it so that it fits the topic as much as it can. They use that time to vent. Another facilitator commented, the topic was effective and meaningful to this small group. Students were opening up and sharing, saw friendships starting. So that's what the adults have to say about the circle. Here's some comments from youth. We had a youth journal page that accompanied each circle topic, and youth could fill out those journals as they wished. It was a voluntary activity. And here's some of the comments that we got from them about the value of the circles in their lives. Connection circles help us understand each other a little better. In turn, it helps us end any arguments or disagreements we have. I notice that others don't want to show empathy, but I know inside it's there, and it's there. They think it's just weakness and worthless. But I noticed I showed it quite a bit, and I'm proud I noticed. I did, because I probably would not. When a person feels like they're being talked about, they become sensitive, and that almost always leads to a misunderstanding. If at times like this people just got in a circle, I think the problems would be fixed faster. And then this comment relating how a circle could have helped with a problem this particular participant was having at home. There was a time when my sister was home all day and didn't clean, and I was told to clean when I got home from school and work. This problem could have been solved with a connection circle because I could have voiced my opinion and we could have found a solution. So connection circles are based on research that identifies key ways that youth gain communication and conflict resolution skills. It's been found that conflict resolution is most effectively learned when the learners are able to participate as equals. Youth also respond better to conflict resolution education when they have agency and when they share authority. Participation in a safe, respectful, accepting process, such as a dialogue process, regardless of the topic being discussed, strengthens communication skills. Analogical reasoning, linking subject matter to personal experience, is a highly effective way to learn conflict resolution skills. In addition, the format of the circle has been found to naturally break down barriers and promote tolerance between participants. And finally, connection circles are consistent with the ARC framework for runaway and homeless youth serving agencies, which was developed by the Hollywood Youth Partnership. Those three elements are attachment to staff and to others, self-regulation, in other words, being able to speak and listen appropriately, and competency in sharing your opinions and your experiences. The ACR JAMS grant was interested in evaluating behavioral outcomes of the Pilot Connection Circles program. While it was not possible to draw a direct line between youth behavior outside the circle and what they learned from circle participation, within the parameters of the program, the following data were gathered. We gathered qualitative data by having facilitators and site staff fill out logs of what they observed happening during the circles and immediately afterwards, and by providing youth with voluntary opportunities to fill out youth journal pages and submit them back to the staff at the site. And finally, we gathered qualitative data by having interviews conducted with staff and facilitators by professional evaluators. Some quantitative data was gathered when facilitators and staff ranked the program implementation at their sites under the guidance, again, of professional evaluators. So what did we find? Here's a summary of some of the key findings. Youth, site staff, and volunteer facilitators found value in the circles. For example, from a youth journal, I feel like being a guinea pig and showing people it's okay to be open. From a staff log, I feel like the topic was very productive. It involved youth asking a lot of questions about the definition of words. Loved it. And from a facilitator log, participants were engaged and allowed themselves and each other to be vulnerable. Another finding was that youth understood curriculum topics and recognized these topics in themselves and in others. For example, here's a definition of active listening from a youth journal. I think active listening means while you're listening to someone speak, you're taking into consideration what they're saying and understanding how they feel. Another youth noticed the disconnect between what he or she was doing and what they saw others doing in a way that made them feel good about what other people were doing. I don't really express my needs or feelings, but I have noticed that those who do express them are truly brave. And finally, from a youth journal, holding grudges ruins one's mood and is unhealthy. They seem to be bad people to be around. Another finding was that youth did practice positive behaviors. For example, my best friend shouted at his girl how much of a B-word she is and kept throwing insults, so I gave him water and talked calmly while slowly backing him away from her. A staff member noticed the circle topic got them thinking about self-respect and how to improve this. Youth seemed more willing to respect and understand others. And it was reported to us by a staff member that students in a classroom circle later asked to use the red card, green card exercise, which is based on the principles of nonviolent communication, so that they could talk about a conflict they were having in a productive and effective way. And this happened more than once, that youth would ask to use this exercise as a way to work out conflicts that they were having. In addition, other examples of youth practicing positive behaviors, staff noted, the circle affects the pace of conversations happening here at the lounge. The introverted youth leave more confident and feel better about their ability to communicate. Staff also noticed that the youth tend to feel that because we did this circle together, we can talk about this situation that's come up. A key finding was that the implementation of the circle was an important component to circle success. Many program elements are beyond the control of site staff, such as youth attendance, outside negative influences on behavior, or thinly stretched resources at the site. To counter this, the program highlights 3 concrete implementation elements that are under the control of the site and that set the stage for meaningful dialogue and learning. Quantitative results show that sites that scored high for enacting these implementation measures also scored high for the quality of youth participation in the circle. In other words, youth were willing to participate and engage more readily than in programs that did not follow the implementation measures. So let's take a look at these keys to successful implementation. Site commitment, dialogue circle model, and skilled neutral facilitators. Now, we've already covered those second 2, dialogue circle and neutral facilitators, but let's take a little bit closer look at site commitment. In order for a site to be able to enact a Connection Circles program over the long run, they need to be sure that the program fits with their overall goals for youth in terms of learning, communication, and conflict resolution skills. They need to make sure that the Circles program is integrated into the larger program, that it doesn't kind of just stick out there like something that doesn't fit in with everything else that's being done at the program. A big part of site commitment is making sure that there is a consistent place, time, and facilitator, and that this happens on the time frame that is advertised. If a circle is going to happen every week, the circle doesn't routinely get bumped for other activities, but it happens every week. And lastly, and this is huge for helping improve relationships between circle participants and staff at the site, that the staff participate in the circle as participants, not as circle leaders or neutral facilitators, but as equal participants in the circle. So we do ask that sites dedicate a staff person, it doesn't have to be the same staff person every time, to be there in the circle with the youth. Here's some of the topics that we discuss in connection circles, and you can see that it runs the gamut from some fairly basic standard topics of communication and conflict resolution, like active listening and feelings and needs and handling anger, and it moves into some topics that, although it may be a common feature of conflict, doesn't necessarily get discussed that much, like blame and unfairness and gossip and grudges and compassion and self-care. These scripts are designed so that they can be used in any order. You can do just one script, you can do a group of scripts depending on what the need of the group is. Now let's take a little bit of a look at a typical connection circle session. In addition to the dialogue circle, the session has several other components that contribute to participant engagement and comfort with the dialogue process. So first thing that has to happen is the youth have to get there. They come into the circle space, and hopefully you can offer them something to eat and drink. Immediately you are setting the stage for a circle that is open, accepting, safe, respectful, all of those elements that we mentioned before. Another way that circle participants become ready to share within the dialogue circle is by participating in a quick cooperative game or non-competitive activity. These also are optional, but the manual that we provide for implementing a program has a whole list of games and activities that can be used with small groups, larger groups, short period of time, longer period of time. And it's just a really nice, fun way to relax and laugh together and get to know each other a little bit before we sit down and discuss the topic. Facilitators review circle agreements prior to the circle, and I'll run through these agreements kind of quickly. Participate as a listener and as a speaker. Stay in the circle until the end. Show respect for all. It's okay to pass. This is a no phone zone, and what's said in the circle stays in the circle. And this is a way to preserve confidentiality and not have gossip come out of these meaningful conversations that the youth are having. After people agree to the circle agreements, then they go into the discussion rounds. Everybody participates. No one is allowed to be in the room just as an observer sitting on the outside listening to everyone else. They participate in the circle even if they decide, well, I'm sitting in the circle, but I'm going to pass on every round. They are still a participant in the circle and not an observer. The answers are up to the participants, as we said earlier, and the facilitators pass a talking piece, and they may share information or lead a brief activity like the red card, green card exercise, which helps participants talk about feelings and needs as they relate to conflict. Once the circle discussion is over, and typically it lasts about 30 to 40 minutes, then youth are offered an opportunity to do journaling, and journal pages are made available to them if they would like. So here is a sample script just to kind of give you a sense of what goes on within that dialogue circle portion of the session. I'm going to read the question as if I were the facilitator, and then I'm going to pause for a few beats. And what I'd like you to do is to answer in your head or out loud, if you wouldn't be disturbing anyone, what you might say as a circle participant in response to these questions. And if you're watching this introduction with somebody else, go ahead and pause the presentation and share your responses with each other, and then come back for the next round. And in this way, you'll get a little bit of a sense of the kind of sharing and the kinds of responses that come up through these circle scripts. So this is our circle on respect, round 1. Respect is something that everybody wants, but not everybody feels that they get. How do you define respect? There are no right or wrong answers. How do you define respect? Now let's think for a minute about the opposite of respect. Disrespect, or thinking someone is disrespecting you, can cause a lot of conflicts. Have you ever been disrespected? What did the other person do or say that felt disrespectful? Respect is important to our sense of self-worth. Who are the people in your life who act respectfully towards you? Who in your life acts respectfully towards you, and how do they behave that is respectful? Now here's an important question. How do you show respect to yourself? What gets in the way of you showing more respect to yourself and others? What stops you from being respectful? And finally, what is one thing you can do to show more respect to yourself and others? Thank you for your participation. The circle is now closed. Well, we've covered the basics of the Connection Circle program. We've taken a look at what participants have to say about it and some of the research basis that underlies it. We've given you a sense of how a circle looks and a little bit of a taste of the circle script. And if this is something now that you think you might like to look into further for your site, here's some ways that you can get started. The first is to review the components of site commitment. Without site commitment, it's difficult to sustain an ongoing, well-attended program. So take some time, have conversations with others at your site, look at those 3 elements, site commitment, dialogue circles model, neutral facilitator who has received training, and if that's something that you think the site would like to commit to, go ahead and take the facilitator training, which is online, on demand, and there is no charge. You also can obtain the Connection Circles manual, which is downloadable and free, and this contains implementation guidelines, 15 circle scripts, the red card, green card exercise, youth journal pages for each topic, and other support materials. The motto of Connection Circles is listen from the heart, speak from the heart. I hope that this brief introduction has given you a sense of how the Connection Circles program could come to life at your site to the mutual benefit of the youth and the staff who serve them. To learn more about taking facilitator training or obtaining the manual, or if you have any questions about the program, please contact me. You can see my phone number and email address on the screen there, and there is the website as well for the center. And as always, go ahead and download that Connection Circles Introduction PDF if you'd like to share this information with others and perhaps talk more about how the program might fit at your site. As you seek to help youth in your care become better communicators and conflict resolvers, we hope that Connection Circles will prove to be a valuable tool in your toolkit. Thank you for your interest and attention, and for all that you do for youth. We wish you the greatest success. Goodbye.